Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We are continuing our deep dive into Friedrich Nietzsche's The Zarathustra book. We have gone in pretty far, I must say, and I have really enjoyed it because it's really made me think about things, and it has allowed me to become even more introspective. We're on paragraph number 25. Let's begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Whoever has gained wisdom concerning ancient origins will eventually look for wells of their future and new origins. Oh, my brothers, it will not be over long before new peoples originate and new wells roar down into new depths. So new peoples originate, new wells roar down into new depths. When I hear that, it just makes me realize the cycle of change. There's a lot of people who can't handle change. They don't want to see change, and I think that's a big mistake. Because if you get bogged down, you become obsessed, you think you can control the trajectory, then I think that you really lose out. For earthquakes bury many wells and leave many languishing, but they also bring to light inner powers and secrets. So think about that for a second. The ground shaken, things get crumbled, but also the earth splits, the ground splits, and you may discover something. Gems, who knows? Something that was buried long ago. Earthquakes reveal new wells. In earthquakes that strike ancient peoples, new wells break open. And whoever shouts, behold a well for many who are thirsty, a heart for many who are longing, a will for many instruments around that man. There will gather a people, that is, many triers. Who can command who must obey? That is tried out there. Alas, with that, with what? Long trials and surmises and unpleasant surprises, and learning and retrials. Human society is a trial. Okay, like, that's true, right? You know, like, the fitna of everything, as we say in Islam, you know? It's like the fitna of women, if, you know. It's a trial. Thus I teach it, a long trial. And what tries to find is the commander. A trial, O my brothers, and not a contract. Break this word of the soft-hearted and half and half. 26. O my brothers, who represents the greatest danger for all of man's future? Is it not the good and the just? Okay, hold on, let's see. So, the greatest danger, the good, the just. I wonder if he's going to be a little saucy here and make it sound like those who prop themselves up as the good, right? Inasmuch as they say and feel in their hearts, we already know what is good and just, and we have to woe unto those who still seek here. So, we already know. Okay, so think about Danny, Daenerys, and Jon. Okay, he asks her, how do you know it's good? And then she kind of mentions, I'm paraphrasing, like, because I know what is good. Right? And then that's when he sees that she's mad. And then he decides to put a sword through her. So when a ruler is like, I know what's good, I don't need a council, I know what is just, then it's like, you're kind of letting go of what could help you to be more safe, what could help you make a better decision, run your ideas by some people, you know, because leaders today aren't prophets. And whatever harm the evil may do, the harm done by the good is the most harmful harm. So think about the greater good arguments. So let's write over here, the greater good. Now think about, let's do an example. In Moses' like, there's a one by DreamWorks, right? And in DreamWorks, there's a scene where Moses goes to Pharaoh and mentions to him, you know, like, did you really do this? And then the Pharaoh says, they were only slaves, they were outnumbering us, they were going to rise against us, and sometimes sacrifices must be made. I'm paraphrasing. And then Moses is horrified because he discovers that mural, those hieroglyphs showing babes being tossed into the River Nile. Okay? And so that's a problem. Big problem. Because the Pharaoh felt like he was doing the greater good. And I tried to have this conversation with some really crazy Zionists. They were liberals on Instagram. My mistake. And I just said that, because a woman said that she was going on dating apps and that she has to ask people who were the bad guys in World War II. And I said, relative questions with relative answers, because moral relativism is a real conundrum. I, as a Muslim, say we have the correct code, right? Another person says theirs, okay? That person freaked out and said, how could you ever think that those fascists and, those National Socialists were good? I said, no, I didn't say they were good. But what I'm trying to point out is you had millions of people who felt like they were doing something for the greater good. And then those survivors of that turned around and then look what they're doing to Palestine for what they call the greater good. You see, it's like, it's so troubling because politics is also trying to achieve that greater good in a way, and that's where we come in and we say, hey, that's not cool. We're not going to do that. And so, and no matter which way you look at it, people can do things in the name of the greater good that cause a lot of harm. Okay? It's a very tense conversation, but they didn't see what I meant. They just insulted me. I mean, it's amazing how people don't know you, and then they'll tell you, all these weird insults, and you're like, if you actually knew me, you wouldn't talk to me like that. You would take back what you said, and you'd apologize. But what do you expect, What do you expect? And then I had sent a link to one of them saying Crimes of the Allies, and it's not too long of a YouTube video where you see what the U.S., the Allies did to the German women. And I was like, okay. And then that person said, well, that's not as bad as what the Nazis did. And I said, okay, if the Nazis were super, super evil, why did Operation Paperclip happen? Why did America invite them in and hire them and give them jobs? Help them survive? Escape the Nuremberg trials? Werner von Braun? And then you realize that they didn't really look at the whole spectrum. They block, and then you're like, okay. It's very hard for people to say, oh, I didn't know that. Thanks for letting me see that. And then it's just fascinating. So when you see this line here, you can think of countless examples. And that's why the study of ethics and philosophy is so intense. Because you have to argue, okay, what is this? What is that? Sometimes you just have to do your best. But those people who think they're doing good can actually be doing harm. Right? And whatever harm those do who slander the world, the harm done by the good is the most harmful harm. O my brothers, one man once saw into the hearts of the good and the just, and said, they are the Pharisees. But he was not understood. The good and the just themselves were not permitted to understand him. Their spirit is imprisoned in their good conscience. Aha! Their spirit is imprisoned in their good conscience. That reminds me of, let's say someone who's a rabid Zionist. And you're just like, hey, you see all these videos of these children? Do you think that maybe you should take a different approach? And they're just like, no, we're the good army. We're the most moral army in history. And then you're like, okay, man. Look at it this way. But it's like their mind is in prison. And then you see that governments and algorithms are very good at creating a sort of conformity, sort of narrative, The stupidity of the good is unfathomably shrewd. This, however, is the truth. The good must be Pharisees. They have no choice. The good must crucify him who invents his own virtue. That is the truth. Now listen, the good must crucify him. So this sounds a lot to me like when we talk about Bidah in Islam. This also reminds me of heretics. Christianity. People who they make up their own moral code and then they divert from what is sanctioned. The second one, however, who discovered their land, the land, heart and soil of the good and the just, was he who asked, whom do they hate most? The Creator they hate most. He breaks tablets and old values. He is a breaker. They call him lawbreaker, for the good are unable to create. They are always the beginning of the end. They crucify him who writes new values on new tablets. They sacrifice the future to themselves. They crucify all man's future. The good have always been the beginning of the end. So that, to me, it sounds like a lot how when Jesus came to change for the Christians, according to their narrative, that he came and changed some of the rules and stuff. Changing from Old Testament to New Testament. They weren't for that. And so in their narratives, they crucified him, breaking the law. 27. Oh, my brothers, have you really understood this word? And what I once said concerning the last man, who represents the greatest danger for all of man's future? Is it not the good and the just break the good and the just? Oh, my brothers, have you really understood this word? So, this kind of sounds to me like the cycle of politics, really. So you got Democrats, Dems, Republicans, and they come in, they say, this is good. Like, Biden will be like, yeah, men and female sports, that's awesome. Just totally violate females' privacy, and now this is awesome. And then we have to go in there and be like, next president comes in, we're going to break that up. That's not right. We're not doing that. You have to be classified. And then another example. Oh yeah, let's put intact males who cosplay as women in a cell with a woman. Because they identify as women. Yeah, that's sure safe. And then women end up getting R-worded. And then, you have to come in there and break that up and say, no, what you're doing is not good. That's actually quite evil. So it's a never-ending battle of different interpretations of the good. 28. You flee from me, you are frightened, you tremble at this word. O my brothers, when I bade you break the good and the tablets of the good, only then did I embark man on his high sea. And only now does there come to him the great fright, the great looking around, the great sickness, the great nausea, the great seasickness. False coasts and false assurances the good have taught you. In the lies of the good you were hatched and huddled. Oh, look at that. In the lies of the good you were hatched and huddled. So the sort of coziness, sweet lies, because you were nourished on something that wasn't really pure. Nourished on something that didn't really serve you well. It wasn't actually good, rotten fruit. Everything has been made fraudulent and has been twisted through and through by the good. You can see a lot of political angles here. So, like feminists will say, like, what they think is good is a form of twisting, in my opinion. It's something that I don't think is good at all. And it's fraudulent. Sort of counterfeit existence. But he who discovered the land, man, also discovered the land, man's future. Now, you shall be seafarers, valiant and patient, walk upright betimes. O my brothers, learn to walk upright. The sea is raging. Many want to right themselves again with your help. The sea is raging. Everything is in the sea. Well then, old sea dogs, what of fatherland? Our helm steers us toward our children's land. Out there, stormier than the sea, storms our great longing. So the fatherland, the motherland, children's land. 29. Why so hard? The kitchen coal once said to the diamond. After all, are we not close kin? Why so soft, O my brothers? Thus I ask you, are you not, after all, my brothers? Why so soft, so pallid, so yielding? Why is there so much denial, self-denial in your hearts? So little destiny in your eyes? So pliant, somebody who just kind of goes with the flow. They don't really, they're easily bendable, easily just out there. They don't really do any type of resistance. You can placate them real easily, bribes, you name it. The yielding part, they always let others go. They never initiate their own energy. They never take the lead. They never embark first. They're always holding back. You go, I go. You go, I go. And then denial, like, no, that didn't happen. And then self-denial, no, I'm not doing that. And then they don't have that sort of destiny in their eyes that they're trying to grab the future. And if you do not want to be destinies and inexorable ones, how can you triumph with me? And if your hardness does not wish to flash and cut through, how can you one day create with me? See, notice this. So your hardness does not wish to flash and cut and then cut through. So how are you going to create? Because to create is to cut. Think about it. When you're like, let's take example, carving meat. You got to cut them steaks. You got to create a ribeye. You got to create some top sirloin, T-bone. You got to cut. You got to dismember. When you are sculpting, you got to cut clays. You want to make some pottery, you got to cut a chunk. You got to trim. You know, you got to do stuff. You want to make a handle, everything. If you want to build a car, you're cutting metal, you're cutting through stuff. So if you, no matter which way you look at it, you have to create. A mother gets cut through, seven layers of tissue when she gives birth. I mean, not gives birth, has a C-section birth. So she has to be cut through so she can have that life created come in. For creators are hard. And it must, okay, so creators are hard. Now, what's unique about that is just examining how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of all and He's most merciful. Okay? But we are His slaves and His rules are His rules. And He has a wrath. And we don't want to follow those who have evoked His anger. So He's swift in accounting, fearless. So there's a sort of hardness there. And let's take a chef, head chef, okay? Someone who has dealt with the public for a while. They're always creating. They have something going on about them. They are a bit hard sometimes, not very kind. You'll notice that people who do create, they do have a sort of tense to them. Not that they're just like Gordon Ramsay being a total monster and maniac and just deranged, foaming at the mouth person. But they're not, they take initiative. They're not just like, you do it, you do it, you do it, you do it. They have to assert some type of energy and put their will on something. Whatever it is that they are creating, you know. And it must seem blessedness to you to impress your hand on millennia as on wax. Blessedness to write on the will of millennia as on bronze. Harder than bronze, nobler than bronze. Only the noblest is altogether hard. This new tablet, O my brothers, I place over you, become hard. So, he has had this kind of theme of wanting you to kind of be a bit toughen up, buttercup. Not to be so wormy, so unsure, so soft-footed. Not to be a tenderfoot, but to kind of be more prepared for what is. 3. Oh, thou, my will, thou, cessation of all need, my own necessity, keep me from all small victories. So See, usually, you take a lot of pride in the small victories because it's one day at a time, incrementalism. But it seems like he's more of like, no, the final goal. Thou destination of my soul, which I call destiny, thou in me, over me, keep me and save me for a great destiny. So, to celebrate the great things, but to sort of not over accentuate the smaller victories. It's interesting because I look at the small victories instead of just like one grand thing, like I guess that really shows a different type of mindset. But some people would argue if you focus too much on the small victories that you're pushing yourself towards mediocrity. And thy last greatness, my will, save up for thy last feat, that thou mayest be inexorable in thy victory. Alas, who was not vanquished in his victory? Alas, whose eye would not darken in this drunken twilight? Alas, whose foot would not reel in victory and forget how to stand? That I may one day be ready and ripe in the great noon, and ready and ripe as glowing bronze clouds pregnant with lighting and swelling milk utters, ready for myself and my most hidden will. A bow lusting for its arrow, an arrow lusting for its star, a star ready and ripe in its noon, glowing, pierced, and raptured by annihilating sun arrows, a sun itself, and an inexorable solar will, ready to annihilate in victory. O will, cessation of all need, my own necessity, save me for a great victory. Thus spoke Zarathustra. So, a bow lusting for its arrow. You see this connective chain of need and connection, and what depends on the other. What is the bow without its arrow? What is the arrow without the bow? And then this arrow, what is its objective to reach its mark? Small victories, great destiny. The Convalescent 1. One morning, not long after his return to the cave, Zarathustra jumped up from his resting place like a madman, roared in a terrible voice, and acted as if somebody else were still lying on his resting place, who refused to get up. And Zarathustra's voice resounded so that his animals approached in fright, while out of all the caves and nooks that were near Zarathustra's cave, all animals fled, flying, fluttering, crawling, jumping, according to the kind of feet or wings that were given to them. Zarathustra, however, spoke these words: Up, abysmal thought, out of my depth, I am your cock and dawn, sleepy worm. Up, up, my voice shall yet crow you awake. So, the crowing awake, when you see like crows and roosters, so roosters, crows, it's fascinating because crows, like, I'll be eating and they come close and they're just like, gaw, gaw, gaw. And then you're like, what do you want? You know they want something, right? Some food. Toss it to them, they get it. But it's fascinating, like, they will crow at you until they catch your attention. And the roosters, very similar, but they'll wake you up in the morning and let you know what's going down. So someone doing that to you at first may feel irritating, but there's a function to it. Because your rooster on your farm, he's letting you know it's time to get up, it's time to do what you gotta do. Day has started. Unfasten the fetters of your ears, listen, for I want to hear you. Up, up, here is thunder enough to make even tombs learn to listen. So thunder enough to make even tombs listen. So that type of extension, type of depth. And wipe sleep and all that is purblind and blind out of your eyes. Listen to me even with your eyes. So here, listening with the eyes. Some people are more observers, visual learners. Some audible. Some functionary, like they have to participate in it before they can really get it. So the eye point is interesting. My voice cures even those born blind. So he's not taking that literally, but it's just like, oh, I didn't realize that before. Hey, you don't say, huh? I never thought of it that way. You see? So, like, opened you up. And once you are awake, you shall remain awake eternally. Like, once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. It is not my way to awaken great-grandmothers from their sleep to bid them sleep on. So it's like the young people, they have a chance, but not disturbing the old people who may not understand. Some old people there, like, you kind of just leave them in their little, in their stances. It's kind of how I feel with my grandpa. You know, he'll say something and you're like, oh. You could take time to correct him, but then the next day he'll mention it again. And you're not really going to change much in someone at that age. You are stirring, stretching, wheezing, up, up. You shall not wheeze, but speak to me. Zarathustra, the godless summons you. I, Zarathustra, the advocate of life, the advocate of suffering, the advocate of the circle. I summon you, my most abysmal thought. Okay, so notice this. The circle. That sounds like the circle of life. The highs and lows. It's cyclical. What goes up must come down. A rotation of emotions. You will suffer, and then through suffering get life, and life creates suffering. It's just this never-ending loop. Hail to me, you are coming. I hear you. My abyss speaks. I have turned my ultimate depth inside out into the light. Hail to me, come here. Give me your hand. Huh? Let it go. Huh? Nausea. Nausea. Nausea, woe unto me. 2. No sooner had Zarathustra spoken these words than he fell down as one dead, and long remained as one dead. But when he regained his senses, he was pale, and he trembled and remained lying there, and for a long time he wanted neither food nor drink. This behavior lasted 7 days, but his animals did not leave him by day or night, except that the eagle flew off to get food. And whatever prey he got together he laid on Zarathustra's resting place. And eventually Zarathustra lay among yellow and red berries, grapes, rose, apples, fragrant herbs, and pine cones. But at his feet 2 lambs lay spread out, which the eagle had with difficulty robbed from their shepherds. So here, you know, it's fascinating when you see how some eagles can snatch away those little critters, huh? It's crazy. Yeah, they're strong, man. At last, after 7 days, Zarathustra raised himself on his resting place, took a rose apple into his hand, smelled it, and found its fragrance lovely. Then his animals thought that the time had come to speak to him. O Zarathustra, they said, it is now 7 days that you have been lying like this with heavy eyelids. Will you at last get up on your feet again, step out of your cave? The world awaits you like a garden. The wind is playing with heavy fragrances that want to get to you. So the wind playing with heavy fragrances, sort of boosting aromatherapy. Without trees and grasses and flowers, there's not much smell besides car exhaust. And garbage cans. So my cities are so putrid. Being by the ocean, clean water, not where they just dump all their garbage into the rivers, but a place where there's the scent of redwood trees and pine, Douglas fir, birch, sweet-smelling grasses when the rain falls. It's just so blissful. The rich soil with its fragrance. That's wonderful. Instead of just wet concrete with graffiti and garbage and car exhaust. And all the brooks would run after you. All things have been longing for you. While you have remained alone for 7 days, step out of your cave. All things would be your physicians. All things would be your physicians. That is a great line. So then the world contains much medicine when you think about it. Visually, seeing the butterfly, seeing the bird, seeing the seagulls dive, smelling fresh cut grass. There's so much around you that can rejuvenate you. Taking the dandelion, making tea from it, jelly. There's a lot you can look at and appreciate. Has perhaps some new knowledge come to you, bitter and hard? Like leavened dough, you have been lying. Your soul rose and swelled over all its rims. My animals, replied Zarathustra, chatter on like this and let me listen. It's so refreshing for me to hear you chattering. Where there is chattering, there the world lies before me like a garden. The sounds of animals are nice, like when my birds chirp. Not when they scream, but when they chirp, and when you hear the crows cawing outside, the seagulls making their calls. It's wonderful. Even some dogs have a nice bark. And just certain sounds of nature. Cows mooing. It's nice. How lovely it is that there are words and sounds. Are not words and sounds rainbows and elusive bridges between things which are eternally apart? That's a great point when you think about it. Elusive words and sounds are elusive bridges. The connections. You go there, it comes back. It's this transport of ideas and exchange of ideas and thoughts. To every soul there belongs another world. For every soul, every other soul is an afterworld. Precisely between what is most similar, illusion lies most beautifully. For the smallest cleft is the hardest to bridge. For me, how should there be any outside myself? There is no outside. But all sounds make us forget this. How lovely it is that we forget. Have not names and sounds been given to things that man might find things refreshing? Speaking is a beautiful folly. With that, man dances all over things. How lovely is all talking and all the deceptions of sounds. With sounds our love dances on many hue rainbows. That's interesting. If you weren't able to talk, how would you form as many connections? Just hugging all day ain't gonna work the same. Oh, Zarathustra, the animal said, to those who think as we do, all things themselves are dancing. They come and offer their hands and laugh and flee and come back. Everything goes, everything comes back. Eternally rolls the wheel of being. Eternally rolls the wheel of being. Remember earlier he talked about the advocate of the circle, the advocate of life, the advocate of suffering. And so that's the wheel of being. See, it comes full circle. He's a good writer. Everything dies, everything blossoms again. Resurrection. Eternally runs the year of being. Everything breaks, everything is joined anew. So look at this. Everything breaks, everything is joined anew. It reminds me of like these white supremacists. They're like, oh, I can't believe all these brown people are here. They're destroying our civilization. And you're like, race mixing is joining anew. How many empires have fallen? Ones we don't even have records of. Their race doesn't exist. They went and bred, repopulated with other races, and this is the way it will go. Different governments broke, different economies broke. Even stone cracks. How often does like the Golden Gate Bridge have to be updated and fixed? Everything is crumbling, and the erosion of cliff sides from the ocean beating them down. The rain erodes and tombstones. Some tombstones, they have to be fixed. And you think about the rain and just how soft it is, but over time it erodes. It's fascinating. The sun, you have a picture by the window, the sun comes in and takes the color out. I mean, everything. You put plastic, you got a nice plastic black fan. You put that by the window, the sun hits it, it fades out that color, makes it dry, it can crack. No matter which way you square it, things will change, and you can't control that. You can try to stave it off for a while, but everything breaks. Eternally, the same house of being is built. Everything parts, everything greets every other thing again. Eternally, the ring of being remains faithful to itself. The ring of being, faithful to itself. Ring of being. In every now, being begins. Round every here rolls the fear there. The center is everywhere. Bent is the path of eternity. "Oh, you buffoons and barrel organs," Zarathustra replied, and smiled again. "How well you know what had to be fulfilled in 7 days, and how that monster crawled down my throat and suffocated me. But I bit off its head and spewed it out. And you, have you already made a hurdy-gurdy song of this? But now I lie here, still weary of this biting and spewing, still sick from my own redemption." Still sick from his own redemption. "And you watched all this? All my animals? Are even you cruel? Did you want to watch my great pain as men do? For man is the cruelest of animals." Yeah. Now, he doesn't mean only men, like feminists are probably like crying, "Yes, we knew men were evil." No, humanity. Man is the word he uses as a synonym for men and women, humans. And humans are definitely cruel because they can do things just to do them. Like you see an orca go after a baby whale. They eat only its liver. It's like that's their culture. That's what they do. They eat it. You see a crab eat its own babes, a pig eat its own piglet. They have their rhyme and reason, but they don't do it just to be cruel. Humans, on the other hand, if you look at the crimes against the elderly and against babies and the unborn, yeah. Children are the example of humans' cruelty. At tragedies, bullfights, and crucifixions, he has so far felt best on earth. And when he invented hell for himself, behold, that was his heaven on earth. When the great man screams, the small man comes running with his tongue hanging from lavishness, but he calls it his pity. So when the great man speak, that's interesting. The tongue hanging like a dog. The small man, especially the poet, how eagerly he accuses life with words. Hear him, but do not fail to hear the delight that is in all accusation. Ooh, that's a good one. Delight that is in all accusation. Delight in their accusation. Accusation. Singular, plural, however you want to write it. Such accusers of life overcomes with a wink. "Do you love me?" she says impudently. "Wait a little while, just yet I have no time for you." Man is the cruelest animal against himself, and whenever he calls himself sinner and cross-bearer and penitent, do not fail to hear the voluptuous delight that is in all such lamentation and accusation. "I'm a cross-bearer." He's taking a jab at the Christians. "And I myself, do I thus want to be man's accuser? Alas, my animals, only this have I learned so far, that man needs what is most evil in him for what is best in him." Ooh. That man needs what is most evil in him for what is best in him. It makes me think of survival instincts. Think of how, like, in The Walking Dead, Carl's about to be hurt. And he's about to be R-worded, I believe. And Rick bites... Is it the ear or the throat? I can't remember, but he bites, like, straight up mauls the criminal in order to protect his son. So he has to muster up, like, what's necessary in order to protect his son. Right? And I think The Walking Dead does a great example of, you know, that inner cutthroatness that is necessary. That whatever is most evil is his best power and the hardest stone for the highest creator. Maybe that is because, like, your most evil aspect of you is something that can create the power of fear, and fear is a very potent aspect. And that man must become better and more evil. My torture was not the knowledge that man is evil, but I cried as no one has yet cried. Alas, that his greatest evil is so very small. Alas, that his best is so very small. So, wasn't that... So, some people were like, I'm gonna be evil by, you know, taking your stapler away and hiding it. Compared to someone who's like, Daenerys Targaryen, I'm gonna torch the city in order to teach you a lesson. Or Cersei Lannister, I'm gonna... Alaria Sand isn't put into a cell with her daughter, who's been given the same poison that she gave Cersei's daughter. So you see, like, that's interesting, right? So, and evil is like, what is evil? What is good? These are serious questions, and anyone who makes it simplified, I just don't want to listen to them, because it's, you know, it's like we have things like, hey, kicking cats is bad, but someone will say, but if the cat is attacking, you know, a baby bird and you want to save it, you have to kick the cat, therefore it's not evil to kick the cat. You see, you can go on and on with these caveats and contexts, and that's what makes the intellectual exercise so potent. Because you begin to see that it's way more complicated, this life we have, than we let on. The great disgust with man, this choked me and had crawled into my throat. And what the soothsayer said, all is the same. Nothing is worthwhile. Knowledge chokes. A long twilight limp before me, and sadness wearied to death. Drunken with death, speaking with a yawning mouth, eternally recurs the man of whom you are weary. The small man thus yawned my sadness, and dragged its feet, and could not go to sleep. So here, we see a great example of just that, yeah, there is knowledge that you're like, what? Think about how you may be given some sad news, like, we only have this much supplies, but we can't let the masses know, because it'll create a panic. You know, how much knowledge is kept from the masses because it would induce a panic. I mean, just look at how people during the lockdowns hoarded toilet paper. Look at how, like, they called them COVID hoarders. And you can see how with the egg shortage, it's not that bad. I mean, I've only seen, like, one store don't have any eggs. But if you go to another store, they got eggs. So you just have to drive a little bit around, you know. And some put a cap. Others, they don't even have a cap. Everything's fine. But when you just mentioned to people bird flu, and that prices will temporarily go up, people have a huge panic. They buy all these eggs. Some of them, they also want to buy it just to resell it at a higher price in the parking lot to customers who are desperate. You can create an artificial panic that has real world consequences. And eggs is expire, and it's wasteful because they might not be able to sell as much, and then, you know, that all got wasted. And there's these videos that keep circulating, and it's quite annoying to keep seeing them, but people fighting in Costco over eggs. You see, so you got the knowledge there's a bird flu, that there'll be a certain shortage. It gets amplified too much in the media, creates a panic, and makes people freak out, and then you're like, So what you do with knowledge is important. And sometimes you'll learn things that you're like, oh, that's horrible, that's intense, or okay, that's actually a really good thing, I better keep this to myself. So, you know, there was a Rick and Morty episode where it was a jelly bean, something. He was actually really a bad guy, and when they found out the truth of what he was, that he was a bad bean, they're like, well, the illusion of him being good is better, and we won't tell what he did. And then the people who knew that, they're like, I can't believe how evil he was. And so, you know, that type of knowledge chokes. You know? Like, imagine all the assassinations that have happened in history, the people who know the truth. How it must, like, have a deep hold on them, because they were not able to tell anybody. Right? Something to think about. I hope you enjoyed. It's great text. We're over 200 pages deep. More than halfway through. Thank you for joining. Take care. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Join the blog. Supports the channel. I'm not monetized. And I write a lot of different things on the blog. Educational, humor, stuff, you name it. There's lots of variety on there. Just search by keyword. Something will come up. Take care.